Prosperity. The gap, according to National Chief Perry Bellegarde, represents a disproportionate of First Nations people in Canada's prisons. First Nations people make up about 4.5% of the population of Canada, yet they represent 25% of the people in jail. It represents the high youth suicide rate in Canada, which is 4 to 5 times higher than the national average. It represents the missing, murdered women and children, boys and men. It represents 40,000 Indigenous children in foster care. It represents the cap on educational funding, which is close to half of the provincial averages. AIDS, TB, diabetes, they're all linked to this gap in the standard of living. For me, it represents our national wound, one that I believe we need to heal to the benefit of all of us. Now that, of course, begs the question, how do we get there? Is UNDRIP the answer? Or is it just another piece? Is it a tipping point? Last year I interviewed Senator Murray Sinclair when he talked to me about his time at the head of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. He said that he asked the various parties to the settlement agreement what reconciliation meant to them. He said government leaders, church leaders, and some of the lawyers representing the survivors said that reconciliation from the non-Indigenous side was met when the money was put into a compensation fund. And with that, they washed their hands of it and said now it's up to Indigenous people to figure out how to get past this history. What an incredible statement. He went on to say what that fails to recognize inherently, structurally, and mentally is that Canada and its leaders have created an environment in which it and they fervently believe in the superiority of their existence to the exclusion of Indigenous people. He went on to say that reconciliation will not be achieved when it's seen as rights by one side, those seeking them, and an act of benevolence on the other. An act of benevolence. It has to be seen as a discussion about rights, about mutual respect of rights. And we're not quite there yet. We're making steps in the right direction, but we're not there. So I asked Senator Sinclair, what do we need to do to get there? His answer, of course, was thoughtful, one that recognized the complexity of the challenge. Time, changing attitudes, changing laws, and access to opportunity. But above all, he said, it's how Indigenous children are taught to respect themselves and one another. So thankfully, the residential school system has come to an end. Unfortunately, its legacy has not. Without a doubt, one of the debilitating impacts of the residential school system is the severe impact it can have on self-esteem. And overcoming the repeated message that you are unwanted, unworthy, and unable to contribute to society, messages that were compounded with a severance from community, traditions, and a connection to nature, makes the path to self-realization extremely challenging. Senator Sinclair says overcoming low self-esteem is central to realizing opportunities that will ensure that everyone has the ability to realize their full potential. Potential that needs to be coupled with access to economic opportunities. Our speakers today couldn't agree more. The transformation has to take place in an environment of shared understanding and a collective effort to move forward. Chief Robert Joseph is a residential school survivor and a seminal leader in our collective move towards reconciliation. And Michael Downey is a filmmaker who has and continues to shine a light on the legacy of the residential school system. He profiles the story of Channy Wenjack, who would have turned 66 on the 19th of January. That's just 5 days from now. And instead of turning 66, he died in 1966 at just 12 years of age. We lost him and the contribution he would have made to his family, his community, and to all of us. Thankfully, through the work of Michael and Gord Downey, Chinese life is playing a role in reshaping our country. I would now like to ask Chief Robert Joseph to come and take the lectern. Followed after his presentation, I will ask Michael Downey to join us here on the stage. Chief Joseph.